What's up, Vikings fans? Welcome back to another edition of Viking Spin. I'm your host, Jason, and we're having a special podcast today just to talk about the rumor about Antonio Brown, the Vikings trading for him, trading Xavier Rhodes to Pittsburgh for Antonio Brown. And I just wanted to clear up a few things about this that I think not being completely understood. I put out some polls on our Viking Spin Twitter and Facebook, made a post, and I think people might be missing something about the salary cap here. So I'm going to explain that and also the pros and cons of this trade. The thing to know about Antonio Brown's contract is, with the Steelers right now, they are responsible for his signing bonus. So the $22 million cap hit that's on the books for the Steelers right now, they would only get $1 million in cap relief by trading him. So $21 million of that is dead money to them. So the team that trades for him is only going to be responsible for his base salary and any roster bonuses. And there's only a roster bonus on 2019 for $2,500, or not $2,500, but $2.5 million. Excuse me. So $2.5 million, and then the rest of it is base salary. So his total cap hit in 2019 is $14.1 million. The total cap hit in 2020 is $11.3 million, and the total cap hit in 2021 is $12.5 million for the team that trades for him. So if you trade Xavier Rhodes, his contract looks the same in terms of cap hits, basically, as Antonio Brown's. So you're just trading one expensive player for another one. So this does not prevent the Vikings from signing an offensive lineman in free agency, and it certainly doesn't prevent them from drafting offensive linemen. I saw some preposterous comments out there saying, "Oh, they need offensive linemen. You know, what the heck are they getting a wide receiver 3 for?" It has no bearing on the cap. If you plan on them signing an offensive lineman in free agency, then they can still sign an offensive lineman in free agency. You know that they're going to make some roster moves. They got about $7 million in cap space now, according to overcap.com. And getting rid of Remmers and Sendejo, that opens up another $10 million in cap space. You've got two guys that have no leverage in contract negotiations in terms of restructuring. Linval Joseph, who is on the wrong side of 30, coming off a down year, and Everson Griffin on the wrong side of 30, coming off a down year, and coming off a year where he had to leave the team for half the season for mental health issues. So there's not going to be teams pounding down the door for these guys in free agency to give them big money with their current situations. So the Vikings can probably save another $12 million in just by restructuring those two. So 12 plus 7, that's 19, plus the 10 from Sendejo and Remmers, that's now you're up to $29 million in cap space. You're not going to pay Kyle Rudolph almost $8 million. So if you cut him, then you're up to like 36, 37 million in cap space. So it's a non-issue. You can definitely absorb Brown for $14 million there. Let's say you had 37 in cap space. Absorb Brown for $14 million. So now you're down to $23 million. You can go out and sign Matt Paratus for $8 million, and then you got $15 million left for the draft picks and a couple of re-signings. And I'm sure if you were to bring in Brown, that Kirk Cousins would probably shift some of his 2019 salary to 2020. Let's say you shaved off $5 or $6 million there, and it's not a pay cut. You're just going to pay it to him. Just pay him extra in 2020 from what you would have paid him. You have plenty of money for some re-signings, like to get Anthony Harris and Latavius Murray, and your cheap guys like C.J. Ham and Dan Bailey and such back in the building as well. So, they can make it work. And I mean, I've seen this comment not just with Antonio Brown, but even when I suggested bringing in John Brown from the Ravens, is probably going to command like $5 or $6 million. Um, when you do your restructures and releases, and you're at 36 million in cap space, signing a guy for $6 million does not prevent you from signing another guy for 8. I mean, come on, guys, let's do the math. So, and I don't know where people came up with the idea that it would have any impact on how the Vikings drafted. If you think they're going to draft offensive line early, why would that change? So, the issue here is not the salary cap. That's the point I've been trying to make. The thing with Brown, though, is, the fact that there was not guaranteed money for the trading partner was a big selling point for the Steelers to get a good return on a trade for him. But now Brown has come out and said on Twitter that he wants his new team to convert that base salary to signing bonus. So while the cap hits won't change, he wants his new team to guarantee him that money for 2019 through 2021. So now you can't really walk away from him if it doesn't work out. So you really got to be sure that it's going to work out. And that's where we get into the cons, where now you have to deal with his attitude. And yes, I do understand his points about Mike Tomlin and Ben Roethlisberger kind of blaming him for all of their misfortunes, which is really not fair. Brown missed the last game of the season nursing an injury, and they blamed him for the entire season over that. Antonio Brown is not some guy that just, doesn't play if he has a hangnail. The guy's only missed 7 games in the last 8 seasons, and he's Antonio Brown. I mean, he's had 100-catch, 1,000-yard seasons, I think, for 6 or 7 straight. I mean, he's the best receiver in the game. So, if the Vikings did get him, they'd have the best wide receiver trio in NFL history with Brown, Thielen, and Diggs. And there's no way you could cover all those guys. And, you couldn't double team any of them because then you're leaving the others one-on-one. It's from a football perspective, it looks really good on paper. The thing is it's Antonio Brown, so you're dealing with his attitude in that, he put out a tweet the other day that said if the next team didn't give him guaranteed money, meaning a team that traded for him, he would sit out. So he said, I don't want to play in the NFL if I don't have guaranteed money. So there's that. The flamboyant blonde mustache picture. He wants to be called Big Chest instead of Antonio Brown or AB. The guy has arrived at practices in a chopper before. So, it's kind of a distraction. I know Mike Zimmer has dealt with big personalities in the past, but do you really want to put that kind of stress on your team? That's the cons I see. The fact that Paul Allen talked about this rumor, usually when he talks about something big like that, it comes true a lot of the time. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to come true, but it was the Vikings must be considering trading a cornerback. It doesn't necessarily mean it's Rhodes or Waynes in particular, but they do have a ton of cornerback depth, and they really only used 4 cornerbacks last year. You think about it. Mike Hughes was lost for the season in the 5th game of the year, and for the most part, the Vikings used the 4 that they had left. So, it would be the same kind of cornerback depth, really, that you had for most of last year. You can go out and draft another cornerback, probably not in the 1st round, but maybe in the 3rd round if you really feel that strongly that you need the additional depth, or a low-cost veteran cornerback just for depth. I suppose you could make up for it in those ways, but I guess the point of this exercise today was just to let people know signing a wide receiver 3, whether it's Antonio Brown or somebody else for less money, it's not going to have any impact on whether the Vikings sign an offensive lineman or draft an offensive lineman. This is not an either-or proposition. In my opinion, the Vikings need to improve their offensive line and get a 3rd receiving target. The fact that teams are able to double team both Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen and nobody else made them pay means that you need a more consistent 3rd receiving option. Kyle Rudolph is not consistent enough to get it done, And Aldrick Robinson is kind of a one-trick pony. He may do better with a full off-season at camp to try to get him to run more routes than just the deep routes. But, I don't think the guy's ever had more than, 20 or 30 catches in a season, and he's 31 years old. So what makes you think he would become a complete receiver now at this advanced age? So I do think that they need to bring in a third receiver. I would also bring in a better tight end that can run block and also be a speedy threat on the outside. So, but I wanted to address this thing with the Antonio Brown for Xavier Rhodes trade deal. Thank you guys for tuning in to another edition of Vikings Spin. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and encourage others to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll have tons more content coming your way on the Vikings free agency. Going forward, we'll be taking a look at internal free agents, external free agent targets, and possible restructures and releases. So thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Take care.